It's time for PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin. Dr. Bob guides you through the latest veterinary techniques and procedures to keep your pets in the best of health. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. With your ears up and tails wagging, here is Dr. Bob.
And here it is, noon on Saturday. I know you've been sitting around waiting for PetSylvania to come on, listening to the good live music programming that precedes me. And as soon as we're done, you can head out and do your Christmas shop. I want to thank Elanco, as I always do, for sponsoring PetSylvania. I really appreciate that support. Products they make, Trifexis once a month, heartworm and flea control to be used year-round. Comfortis once a month, flea control only, again to be used year-round if you're using another form of heartworm prevented. And then Reconcile, which is Prozac at dosages approved for dogs and cats to be used in cases of anxiety, separation anxiety, and other behavioral issues when prescribed by your veterinarian. And then, of course, Sylvania Veterinary Hospital, my office. And I want to highlight our boarding service because we came through the Thanksgiving holiday with just, again, performing superior care for the animals that were with us. And we continue to get nothing but compliments on the condition that the animals are in when they go home. They all seem to be happy when they come in, which is certainly a good indicator. You know, now that it's winter and it's cold outside, one of the things that really sets us apart is that the radiant heat that we have in the concrete floors of the runs, when the animals come in from their 4 or 5 outside daily walks and they lay down on that warm concrete, or if they're a little bit older and they have some creaky joints, they really enjoy that, and it's really a value-added service for our boarders that no other facility can provide. So come take a tour of the boarding kennel and the whole hospital. Of course, just stop in. We don't care. I think you'll be impressed. The fact that there's no odor, how fresh it's in there, and the amount of care that the animals obviously get as we track everything that they do while they're with us: weight, food consumption, their water consumption, their voiding, all those types of things is recorded, so we know how well everyone is doing. The time of year, we get a lot of calls about toxic plants, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but I want to re-mention it because everybody's bringing poinsettias in. We've got some poinsettias coming to the office here for decoration, and they're gorgeous. And so there's a kind of an urban legend that poinsettias are really toxic, and the reality is that at the most, they're mildly irritating. The juices from the stem can be a little bit irritating, but they are not at all toxic. And your animal is not going to do anything other than maybe act a little nauseated or lick its lips a little bit. Or if it's a cat that chews on the stem and gets some of the sap in its mouth, it'll stimulate their salivary reflex and it'll get all foamy. But that doesn't indicate that they're in any grave danger. Mistletoe and holly are toxic, and we need to keep that mistletoe hanging from above the door and not down somewhere where particularly a cat can get into it. And if you're concerned that your dog or your cat has gotten into mistletoe or holly, we want you to call us 419-885-4421 anytime, day or night, because there can be severe toxic reactions to that, and we need to deal with that, and it will require a hospital visit. And then lilies and daffodils. And anything from the lily family, which if I were a flower expert, I'd know all this stuff, but I can read. And so I know that narcissus and daffodils, particularly the bulbs, can be really, really toxic, and they cause kidney damage, heart problems, and intestinal tract problems. That's one of those deals. Again, your animal needs to be brought in right away. I have a friend of my family that lives over in the Akron area. She's a young nurse, and she has a dog, and I've been in touch with her all week because her dog wasn't acting right. And it drove home to me the way her veterinarian managed this case, that there's a real difference between being thorough and just doing the minimum, kind of getting through it. Her dog had started to vomit and developed some diarrhea, and so the first visit, nothing diagnostic was done. A shot was given to control the vomiting, and they gave a little bit of fluid under the skin and sent it home. And it wasn't doing any better the next day, so we took it back in and they took x-rays, but they didn't do any lab work, and they gave it some more fluids, and that's all they did. That night's when I got involved, and I said, you're going to need to take her back in tomorrow for sure. There's something going on here, and it's not right, but I don't think it's critical. Well, within a couple of hours, she called me back and said, dog's doing a lot worse, projectile vomiting. So off to the emergency clinic they went, and it turns out that the dog did have, when they retook x-rays, they found a foreign body. They had to take it to surgery. They had 2 sites in the intestinal tract that had to be opened. And had the first practice been more thorough and not just kind of doing the minimum to get by, this probably could have been avoided. The emergency clinics in Akron as well as in Toledo are far more expensive than general practice, and they're certainly more expensive than even our emergency service. And so we would have been thorough. I can almost guarantee, and hindsight's perfect, of course, but I would have been, if that had been my case, I would have been all over that the first time. I would have taken x-rays, but I also would have done lab work. I would have ruled out some of the other things that I was concerned about. And we may very well have hospitalized the dog to give it IV fluids to see if that would help it get through. And once it didn't, then we would have looked again and looked harder for the possibility of a foreign body. If you don't come to Sylvania Vet, be a little more demanding of what's going on. Don't try to get by with the minimum. Be thorough. And one of the ways that you can afford to do that is get pet health insurance. So enough said about pet health insurance, but I think that we can talk about that, and we have talked about that before. A lot of times we'll see records where an animal has been diagnosed, it's been sick, and it's had a set of lab work, and a thyroid test called the T4 comes back and it's low, and lo and behold, the animal's been put on thyroid. A T4 alone as a standalone diagnostic test is not appropriate. And if a diagnosis of low thyroid is made, even if the dog or it looks like it has might be hypothyroid, you need a full thyroid panel. And so again, say if I've got that low T4, that how about let's do a panel before we start medication, because a low thyroid dog's going to have to be on medication for their whole life once it's started. So you really and truly want to know if it should be on that medication. There are a lot of medications that we give regularly. Older dogs with arthritis, and they're on nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories. Dogs with seizures that are on phenobarb and other anticonvulsants. Low thyroid dogs that are on medication for their thyroid. Routine testing needs to be done to follow and make sure that those tests, that the doses are right and that everything is under control, so that we properly adjust the dose if need be, or we can reassure you that doses are great. And most of these medications also require evaluating the kidneys and the liver to be sure there aren't side effects associated with the medication. So twice yearly for most of these, testing blood levels for, use an example, the phenobarb, plus doing a liver kidney panel to check those organs to see that they're not suffering adversely from the medication. We don't want the effects of the cure to be worse than the disease itself. Any kind of a nonsteroidal is a good thing to use. Cats and mats and hairballs. We talked a little bit last week about the value of a flea comb, and here again it comes in on a cat particularly. Flea comb is a great grooming tool, gets that loose hair out, prevents them from swallowing the hair and getting hairballs, which they ultimately, in almost every case, will vomit up. And then the other thing is that a lot of times in a longer-haired cat, they'll get mats, and sometimes if it's let go, you can't comb them out. We see animals where people have been trying to cut their pet's mats out and they end up nicking the skin, and we have to put stitches in the skin, or at the very worst, the animal has to be shaved down because of the fact that the mats are just so extensive and so tightly adhered to the skin that there's no saving them. You start over with a marine recruit kind of haircut, go on from there. Had a question this week about can you feed a cat a vegetarian diet? In one simple word, no. A cat is very, very close to a strict carnivore, and you cannot feed a cat a vegetarian diet and meet the needs of the cat because they need the meat protein in order to be healthy. If you're a vegetarian, that's your decision, but do not try to carry the human component of your vegetarianism over to your cat. You can't do that. On the other side, I'll talk to you a little bit about the possibility of using a vegetarian diet in your dog. I had teased you a little bit that we'd talk about a vegetarian diet in dogs. It is a little more possible to do a vegetarian diet in dogs because, like us, they are omnivores, and we can meet their needs, vegetable proteins. However, some of the soy products that you would use to get your protein out of the vegetables, it can really cause a gas issue. So you may not like that part of trying to feed your dog vegetarian. The other thing is that it's really difficult to get a balanced diet. It's really difficult to do it easily. It's much easier to buy a really good quality, super premium diet from a company that's doing nutritional research, and then use that as the diet for your dog, and let them have some meat proteins because there's nothing wrong with those, and let them have some grains because there's nothing wrong with those. It's easier. It's going to be less expensive. Feeding those of you that are vegetarians know that a vegetarian diet is pretty expensive to adhere to, and it takes a lot of work. So we're roaring down on the end of the Toledo City Paper's Best of contest for the year, and I would like to ask all my listeners to be sure that you vote for Sylvania Vet and help save Lola on the Toledo City Paper's Best of poll for this year. And we also recommend this year we're recommending for Paw's Sake as the best not-for-profit, and I think that if you vote for those three plus 27 others, we'd surely appreciate it. So you can access the website at ToledoCityPaper.com. And again, that's for Best Vet, Sylvania Vet, and for Best Facebook page, Help Save Lola. There's a condition in the deep-chested dogs, and it doesn't have to be a large deep-chested dog. I've seen it in English Bulldogs, and I've seen it in Lhasa Apsos, as well as Great Danes and German Shepherds and Golden Retrievers, and that's a condition called a gastric torsion. The stomach twists on itself and it blocks it off. This is a true emergency. If you're seeing your dog get weak, unsteady, retching unproductively, bringing up a little bit of foamy material, you look at their side on the left side and it looks distended. You kind of tap on that and it sounds hollow. Your dog has a gastric torsion, and that should be seen immediately. It's a surgical solution, and the sooner we can get that stomach decompressed and twisted back in shape, the better off we are. And when we do that gastric torsion surgery, we always tack the stomach to the inside of the abdominal wall so that it can't happen again. That tacking procedure, called a gastropexy, can be done on these dogs at the time they're spayed or neutered, when they're at 6 months of age. And we just go in with an additional procedure, of course, but we tack the stomach prophylactically, trying to prevent a gastric torsion in the future. You have no idea if your dog is going to be a candidate because there's no markers or any ways to determine if a dog is going to be susceptible to getting a gastric torsion. And in all reality, we don't even know exactly why this happens. We do know that if you tack the stomach, there was a far less chance that it's ever going to happen. But feeding multiple small meals, not allowing a large volume of water consumption to go along with the consumption of the food, and not allowing exercise an hour before or an hour afterward are also methodologies that help prevent a gastric torsion. So the key to this is if you've got a younger dog and you're worried about it, or now that you know about it, you're concerned, I would recommend that you get a gastropexy done. It's a simple procedure, doesn't cost a lot, and it could be in your dog's long-term health, best health. I had a case this week on a woman who's been just working her fanny off making home-cooked meals for her dog because they had a blood test run at another practice and it was determined that it was allergic to almost every food known to man. And so she's buying cases of yams and she's buying cases of chicken breasts to be able to make a homemade diet for this animal. There is certainly a question as to whether that diet is balanced diet on top of everything else. She's relying on this blood test, which has absolutely no value. And so I do not recommend that you ever you have a blood test run on your dog or your cat to determine if it's allergic to food. The only way to truly tell if you have a suspected food allergy is to do a unique protein food trial. And so you need to work hand in hand with your veterinarian because 100% compliant to that food trial for a 12-week period is absolutely essential to the success of that food trial so that you truly can determine if there's a chance that your dog has a food allergy. The food allergy is the least common of the causes of allergies in dogs, and so it's not always at the high end of my list as we try to figure out whether your dog is allergic and to what it might be allergic. Environmental allergens are best diagnosed with intradermal skin testing. Again, the blood test is very unreliable. Many animals, dogs and cats, eat too fast, and eating so fast then causes them to turn around and vomit their food because they've overeaten, they've eaten too much. They have that Thanksgiving feel every time they eat because they ate too fast. So you want to slow their eating down. Again, that's from a gastric torsion standpoint could be helpful so that they don't eat so put so much in their stomach and distend it so quickly could help prevent that from happening. And there's a lot of different tricks, but a couple of the three ideas that I like to suggest is that you take a cookie sheet and you put a couple of bowls upside down on it and put the food on the cookie sheet, and then the animal has to eat around the bowls and the food nuggets get pushed around, so it slows them down. Or you can take a muffin tin and you can fill each of the 12 little containers on the muffin tin with food, and they've got to work to get that out of each container, and that'll definitely slow them down. And there's a bowl that we sell. It's called the Break Fast bowl, and it's got little pegs on the built into it in the inside, and so the dog or the cat has to eat around those pegs while it eats its food. Anything like that'll work to help slow the eating habits down, and that's generally healthier. I should pay attention to that as well because I eat pretty fast, and I'm always done, and my wife's still nibbling away, and she doesn't have as much of a weight problem as I have. I wonder if there's a connection there. There could be, and that could be a connection with some animals getting too heavy. It's interesting to know if you only feed your animal once a day and you feed them the right amount of food for their weight, they may still gain weight because they take too much in at once. Where if you feed them even a little more than they might need, but you feed it at multiple meals, you might very well be able to maintain that. So just like people that are trying to diet and they're eating 4, 5, 6 times a day, very small meals, the same thing can be true with a dog if we're trying to put them on a weight loss program. Control the calories, count the calories, and then feed it those calories divided over several meals. At least 2, preferably 3, maybe 4 is a better way to go. They'll be better satisfied. They won't give you that sorrowful look with their brown eyes, wishing that they would get a little bit of the more food, and then you won't be tempted to give them more than they can handle. There's a veterinary dentist out of Canada. He's a specialist. His name is Dr. Fraser Hale. When asked what he thinks are good treats for dogs, he says that I want you to use the kneecap test. And that is if any treat that you're going to use hits your knee so hard that it might injure you, then it's too hard for the dog to chew on. We recommend things that are softer than Nyla bones. We recommend things that are softer than sterilized bones or cow hooves or horse's hooves. Use gummy bones and Havabites and Kong toys, ropes. Rawhides are okay as long as the dog doesn't try to gulp them down. We should be in pretty good shape. Well, it's time to take a break, and so we'll get back on the other side and we'll finish up. At Sylvania Vet, we take care of more than dogs and cats, and so I asked one of my associates, Dr. Melanie Blaisdell, if she would please write something for me about pet rabbits. And she sees a lot of pet rabbits, and they're great pets. And so I'm going to read. Attribution is Dr. Melanie Blaisdell read this, and so I'm going to read it to you intact. Rabbits are wonderful little animals that are too cute to resist owning when you see them as little bunnies. There are a few things that you must consider if you plan on bringing one home. Most rabbits will live an average of 7 to 10 years, so this is going to be a considerable length of time you will be taking care of one. There is a variety of sizes, colors, and hair lengths, so be sure you do your homework to determine which breed is right for you. I would include calling and talking to Dr. Melanie about the purchase of the animal and find out exactly what you should be looking for. That would be at 885-4421. Once you decide on getting a rabbit, the next thing you need to do is get everything to house, feed, and play with your rabbit. Most area pet stores sell adequate rabbit cages that easily disassemble for cleaning. Cage style will vary depending on if you plan to have your rabbit be an indoor or an outdoor pet. If you plan on having an outdoor rabbit, extreme care must be taken during the summer and winter months. Rabbits do not sweat, and a risk of heat stroke during the summer months is very high. Rabbits that stay outdoors during the winter run the risk of frostbite on their ears. We have seen animals whose ears have literally fallen off, and they look short because frostbite has destroyed the ear. You need to make sure that any outdoor cage can adequately protect your rabbit from such temperature extremes. Consider having an indoor area for your rabbit when these concerns arise. Other potential threats that increase with an outdoor rabbit are stray dogs, feral cats, and the potential of fleas from other wild animals. Bedding should be one of the first items you place in your rabbit's cage. There are many different types of products on the market, but there are only a few that are really safe for rabbits. Stay away from any wood-based products such as pine, cedar, or aspen. These products will release chemicals toxic to rabbits when they become wet with urine. You want to find something that is absorbent yet soft, which can be found with paper-based bedding. One such bedding is Carefresh, or we use a product called Yesterday's News. Most pet stores sell, and Sylvania Vet also sells them as well. You will need an adequately sized water bottle to hang the cage. This bottle needs to be cleaned daily and fresh water provided. Be sure you also provide several chewing blocks to help your rabbit's teeth. Rabbits are one of the few pets whose teeth continuously grow. It is important that they receive the proper diet and chewing supplies to keep these teeth at a healthy length. Rabbits have very specific needs when it comes to diet. The most important thing is a high amount of plant fiber, commonly found in hay. Not all hays are the same, and different types are used depending on the age of your rabbit. Very young buddies are started on alfalfa hay diet, but usually by the time they are old enough to go to their new homes, they are ready to be switched to a Timothy hay diet. It is important to not use alfalfa in adult rabbits as the calcium content is too high for their systems. Your rabbits should always have a continuous supply of hay available, as this is the most important part of the diet. When selecting pellet part of the diet, do not pick foods that have lots of colorful pieces. A good quality pet-based formula should also be made out of Timothy, not alfalfa. One main recommended brand that provides both Timothy hay and pellet is Oxbow, which can be purchased online and is also carried at Sylvania Vet. Fresh vegetables are great. Fruits and anything sweet, because bunnies have sweet tooth, are not good ideas. That can upset the flora in the GI tract, leading to digestive problems. Once you have brought a new rabbit home, you should schedule a wellness visit with a veterinarian that treats rabbits. Sylvania Vet has several doctors that regularly treat rabbits during your appointment. They will discuss diet, housing, and proper teeth length. You should immediately contact the vet if your rabbit stops eating, stops passing rabbit poop, or stops drinking, as these can be signs of serious medical problems. Rabbits will need regular wellness appointments for nail trims and possibly teeth trims. There is a great website that you can go to, and it's such an imaginative name. It's www.rabbit.org, the House Rabbit Society. And I would also add that you should be getting rabbits from, like, the House Rabbit Society, members of the House Rabbit Society. Don't buy your pets at the pet stores. Pet stores are just not good places to acquire a pet. Sylvania Vet's holiday schedule this year, and we'll remind you each week, is that we will be closed for appointments on the 24th and the 25th, but of course we will have emergency service available on the 31st, New Year's Eve. We will close at 5, and again we'll have a doctor on call. The 1st, we will be closed for appointments and have a doctor on call, and so we will always be available to you, and we will have staff in the building 24/7, so there'll be someone there caring for your pet. Should it be hospitalized, should it need to come in, and certainly all the boarding animals are going to get that 24/7 care like they do every day of the year. So that wraps it up for another week. There's only one greatest pet, and it lives in your home.
You have been listening to PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin on WSYLradio.com. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. Tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. as Dr. Bob explains the latest in veterinary care and answers your questions. You can email your pet questions to requests@WSYLradio.com, and Dr. Bob will answer them on a future show.